Boom.
All right.
Recording.
Except I can hear myself and somebody is not using headphones.
It's probably John.
God damn it, John.
Yeah, hold on. I'll just switch it. I'll switch it from speakers to headphones.
Hold on, I'll switch it.
What?
Oh man.
You got a problem with how I say shit?
No, this is hilarious.
Welcome, everybody. I'm James.
Leo here.
And John Shahada.
Wow, it's John.
Back for the third time.
Today's episode is Monster Hunter World, and we are going to be discussing Monster Hunter World and our top 5 monsters that we've encountered in Monster Hunter World. I have a feeling you guys are both on polar opposites of the Monster Hunter spectrum. And I have a feeling I'm more a little bit in the middle. So my role in this might be to just moderate the conversation around Monster Hunter World.
Yeah.
So let's start with John. Okay, because you played this game when it launched on PlayStation 4, right? And you finished the whole shebang on PS4, right?
I actually got on Xbox One.
Oh, okay. Well.
Yeah. Well, I think it's kind of weird to say that I got on Xbox One because originally I played the franchise for the first time on a PSP.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's just weird because at the time it was such a niche game and it was very Japanese, very non-Western.
It's still that. It's still all those things.
Yeah. Yes, it is.
Well, I mean, I feel like you need some perspective. You haven't played those original games.
I played some of that. I played Monster Hunter 3 and
yeah. So part of the charisma of the original series is that the animations were very stiff. The the story was non-existent. It played kind of like a JRPG, but you had this weird real-time action sequence that was still very much skill-based. So fast forwarding to today, like just to play on a Microsoft console when it's been traditionally a Japanese game, that's such a weird thing. And then I got it again on PC, which I've been playing a lot more recently. And
yep. So I played, like I said a second ago, I played a bit of the third Monster Hunter. There's been like a million of them. I know they got really popular on handhelds. And this year's Monster Hunter World I thought it was marketed as sort of, this is the onboarding experience for new players if you have not played Monster Hunter World, because we've smoothed out some of the aforementioned jankiness, right? The endearingly janky things that you were mentioning earlier, right, Johns? We've polished some of the edges and this, that's sort of the way Monster Hunter World specifically was marketed. So I was like, okay, cool, let me give this series another shot. And you were sort of in the same boat, right, Leo?
I would say that I was expecting less jankiness than I saw. Yeah.
May I ask specifically what you found janky, Leo?
Well, remember when you were talking about how the other Monster Hunters were like, the animations were very JRPG-like, but that there was like some weird stiff controls.
Right. Do you find that in this game as well?
Yeah, I feel like none of that has changed, really. So,
I feel like maybe if you had some perspective, like if you played those old games, you would see how. I mean, I think.
So what you're saying is that the game is not as bad as other versions of the game.
Precisely,
right.
And I think part of the game's design is built around that jank. If you're playing a great sword class, the fact that it takes like 3 seconds to swing the sword and then another 2 seconds to recover from that swing, that was kind of the game's gameplay was built around that.
It's not just like that. I swing a heavy sword, so it takes longer to swing it. It's like this guy won't swing the sword in the direction that I'm facing.
Right.
Let me tell you what I found to be janky, because I think, Leo, you had the same experience that I did. Leo and I, when we first got this game, booted this up and started playing together, and immediately ran into the first bit of obtuse jankiness. Why why the fuck can't you just play multiplayer with your friends? If you just boot this game up and like join with your other friend who just got it, you can't play together. You can't. Like
Right.
if you're trying to progress
you have to
through
cut off a limb.
yes, you have to play the like specialized like multiplayer arena. Like you can't play through the story together. But like bizarrely, the story is like intentionally designed to be played with multiple people, but you can't do that your first time around. That was baffling to me. And then the fact that like just like the multiplayer sessions can have like 16 people in it, and then you can like, but that's not, a session is not the same thing as a party, and then you can have like a party of other people, but then sometimes you can see your friends in the thing, but only if you're in this one specific area. You can only see your other people who have joined it.
And then there's just like a bunch of like half broken English to like try to explain what the hell is going on. So
yeah, let me speak to some of that because the game.
Is that like vestiges of the old, like what in the world is going on with that?
Precisely, just like how we always say how like Nintendo is just figuring out multiplayer, even though it's been around for decades. Monster Hunter has been traditionally an offline, portable, single player experience.
Really? Okay.
Yes.
Because I've always seen like these big battles with like multiple people playing every time I think of Monster Hunter.
And that's the part of the weirdness of the game is the game really shines when you have a full party that knows how the monster behaves, and you both pick different weapon types to target that monster. And I think the game tries to preserve some of that. I think it reserves the cutscenes and single player stuff for just single player, and it really wants you just to experience that on your own and then get together with your friends for the really hard crap. The stuff that you need to grind multiple times.
But the problem with that is
monster.
that these people created a game saying like this is like the new game that people who've never played a Monster Hunter before should check out, and the multiplayer is so prevalent. We're gonna call it Monster Hunter World, right? As in like a multiplayer game, like a world. So I would feel based on that marketing. I would assume that this is kind of a new take on the genre that maybe focuses on multiplayer engagement.
Oh, everything about this game is all new from the franchise. I mean, you're not wrong to assume that. And then I think it's made worse by all the online issues that have been appearing recently. So I don't think it is excusable, but it is their first, forte into the mainstream console.
Okay.
PC
race.
I mean,
that was stunning to me. That like it took us. We had to like Google how to play with each other. Like
it's part of the game, man.
Even when we figured out how to like join each other's instance, we still couldn't play with each other because it has like all of the story stuff is gated off until you've played it single player.
Right,
yeah,
and
very strange.
The stuff you read online, like what people have been basically doing is everyone does the single player stuff, and then they quit their mission and they join their friends. Because what it's gated is the cutscene, and that's traditionally never been in a Monster Hunter game. There has been no story or cutscenes or any.
Wait, I don't think I realized that. So you can basically just watch the cutscene and then quit, and then you can do it with a friend.
Yep, and then you both get credit for it.
So terrible.
Yeah, I mean their implementation of that is horrible, and there really is no excuse for that. Okay. So. In a lot of ways, World is progressive, but it also is kind of a step back.
I would agree with that.
All right, so let's talk about the actual monster hunting. I'm gonna start with Leo this time. What was your impression of the like actual hunting of the moment to moment gameplay of actually hunting monsters?
So obviously the game had some faults on the the design of multiplayer connectivity, right? So you would think that a game with the rest of the name of the game was Monster Hunter, right? So we've already cut off the world part. So let's just say, is the game good on its premise of monster hunting, right? The namesake of the game? No, it's goddamn terrible. Like, why am I going to, track down this giant raptor thing and attack it, and then it runs away for 30 minutes and heals back up? Like, I can't even hunt a monster, which is the name of the game. Like, I don't understand. It really should just be called chasing monsters around a map while they regen. That's what the game should be called.
All right, John, your rebuttal to because I know you're a Monster Hunter. You're a big Monster Hunter fan. Monster Hunter apologist, maybe. I don't know.
Apologist? I don't know about that. I feel like the game
Maybe
is extremely popular for certain
yes,
reasons.
it absolutely is. So yeah, part of. I mean, I didn't hate this game. I didn't love this game, but I'm trying to figure out why this has become such like a phenomenon, because it is obviously popular and there's tons of people playing it, but I'm sort of in the camp of Leo. Like, I'm trying to figure out what people love about this so much.
I think just the endless possibilities, right? Like people hail games like PUBG, Dota, MOBAs as like unique experience. Every time you do something in those games, it's unique. So every time you play a match, you're playing on the same map, you're playing the same mode, but it's a unique experience every time. Sometimes you get further along and you have an interesting story to tell.
That was probably
And
the most enjoyable part of the game. Yeah.
right, and I think you could say the same thing for this game. In a way, you fight the same monsters over and over, although there is a decent amount of variety, and each time you fight it, there's always something to learn. There's some unique experience. You mentioned, Leo, that it ran away from you a bunch of times. If you track it a bunch, you'll know what area you'll go to before it gets there. So if it runs away on you, you can just go straight to the area that it's running towards.
I just didn't like the running mechanic to begin with. Like,
right. Okay. And why did you know you can build traps in the game, and you can place a trap in front of it so you can stun it in place, so you can do massive damage to it, so it's not running away all the time.
Like whittle at it with your dull blades, so while you slowly give it like a death by 1,000 cuts.
Let me speak to Leo's point there for a second. It seemed like all of the monsters in this game had like a shitload of health, right? And
so much health.
Much health, and it never felt like you're doing any damage. Like, is there something I'm missing there?
Right. So, I mean, part of the game is to build better weapons, and when you do that, you do more damage. The health pool becomes considerably smaller, so it takes less hits to kill the monster. So, maybe you guys were jumping too far ahead. Maybe you forgot to upgrade. Armor is an important piece of the game too. Even though it's traditionally thought as purely defensive, it has a lot of stat bonuses. Cooking is important as well. Even though the game never really explains what cooking does.
And that's the heart of it, John. That's the heart of it, because you might be right about all of this, and and you are. I do remember that. I got to like. Somehow, I wound up with some sort of material that let me upgrade my weapon so it did like +2 damage, right? So I understood that there's this whole other aspect of the game that we just hadn't, touched on yet. But the problem is that the game, like you said with the cooking, doesn't tell you anything. So, there's no process to slowly introduce you to these mechanics. I mean, there is kind of, but it's all broken English and like, crappy cutscenes, and you don't really text that you don't really get.
And the onus is on you to figure that out. And maybe some people like that, and some people want a traditionally hand-holding experience.
And that I'm okay with. I mean, there's sort of a lack of tutorials in here, but like I'm okay with games not totally holding my hand all the time. Let me tell you what I felt was weird about this. This game like really fetishizes numbers and upgrading your weapons and equipment, right? Like you go back to your base and you got all your loot, and you go to the weapon guy and there's like a million different skill trees you can put your weapon in, and there's all these numbers and stuff, and you're like, wow, this is crazy. Like, look at all these, like there's different affinities, there's all this just crazy customization and numbers and statistics, and it's like a giant spreadsheet.
Absolutely.
Why?
It's an RPG, right?
Yes, but why can I never see... Okay, the weirdest thing about this game is that the bosses don't have health bars. And not that every video game needs to have health bars over their enemies, but like for a game that fetishizes numbers as much as Monster Hunter does, it really focuses on all these statistics.
I was gonna say in previous entries you wouldn't even have damage numbers like you do in this game.
That's what was so weird. Were the damage numbers in this? It was like, yeah, 6 damage, 7 damage, yeah, 6 damage, 7 damage. I'm like, that doesn't tell me anything. Like, if the boss has 50 health, if the boss has 50 health and like 6-7 damage a hit, that's a pretty good number. But if the boss has 50,000 health, I'm not doing anything. Like, there was no feedback on how much damage I was doing. It never felt like you were doing anything, and then like boom, the boss would just suddenly die, and you're like, okay.
Here's why that's important too, because if you upgrade, if you get some added armor, some added stats, or you upgrade your weapon or whatever, and you go back out, and even if you're not that much of an upgrade, but like it's some sort of improvement, then you should be able to whack the monster and see like bigger chunks of health go down, and like and see
bigger
like,
damage
visual
numbers.
feedback.
But
they're just like ambiguous. You don't know what they mean.
If the bigger numbers don't mean anything if the bosses also have bigger HP, but like there's no way.
So the game the game is doing two things at once here, right? It's not like you said, it's fetishizing the equipment and the stats aspect of it.
And that's the other
but
thing.
It's also detracting away from the monster health. So it's trying to say that, hey, your skill level as a player is as important as the weapon that you're using. And that's very true. A lot of people who are hardcore Monster Hunter fans, when they're done with the game, they de-equip all their armor, and they do a Dark Souls type run where they just try to play the game with no armor and the best, one of the best weapons, and see how far they can get. Because skill is such an important aspect of the game. So, I think that's a differentiating factor more than it is a downside, that there's no monster health bar.
Yeah, and that's certainly one of the differences, because in Dark Souls, I guess comparisons to Dark Souls are probably overdone, but I think Monster Hunter invites those comparisons just with the way a lot of the system. Yeah,
you're same type of stats and no hand holding, and
you're fighting big monsters, whatever.
The combat is pretty similar too.
But at least in Dark Souls, you have at least all of the bosses and a lot of the sub enemies have health bars, and like it gives a sense of tension to the battle. And that's another one of the things that like Dark Souls is really focused on, because like you get that health bar whittled down and you're like, just a few more hits or whatever. And that's frequently where Dark Souls gets you, because you like overextend trying to get those last couple hits, and then you overextend too much and the monster kills you. But like the pacing in Monster Hunter World is so different, because like the monster will attack like once, or at least the early monsters that I was fighting. Like the monster will attack once, and then it'll just kind of do nothing for like 15 seconds. It'll just kind of wriggle around, and then it'll like attack again, and then it'll just kind of wriggle around. Like the pacing of the battles was really different.
No, and I think that's something they haven't really done a better job with since the last couple of games. The reason why it pauses is for you to do damage, and the game's not telling you that. You're just supposed to observe that. But then you also notice there's phases in the battle where the monster becomes enraged, and you can tell that by the little red icon. Yep. And there's no windows of opportunity, and sometimes it's straight up unfair, because it just goes from attack to attack to attack and not giving you any chance to recover or heal or anything. But I think that's part of the fun, is the randomness. It's not a Dark Souls. I mean, it is very Dark Souls like in a certain way, but it's not a Dark Souls competitor. It's not.
Oh no. Yeah, no.
And I think that's the other thing is, if you're the only one playing, you're gonna get most of the focus of the monster's attacks on you. That's why the PAL coexists. It's supposed to help you out in your single player experience. But if you have 4 players, which the game, like I said, the game shines for, and then you get more different interactions. You get the monster going after one person while the rest of your team attacks it. So
I don't know. It just it felt like this game was just unfocused, or just pulled in a bunch of different directions. Because if the focus is on multiplayer, like you were saying, then why are you forced to play the single player first? And if the game is about like this big loop this, a lot of the like loot loops that like Diablo does, or like where you kill monsters to get loot, to build better weapons, to kill bigger monsters to get better loot, to kill, like I thought that was going to be the draw of Monster Hunter. But like if that's true, then like why are there, like it never felt, even when I was upgrading my weapons, there was never a sense of like me getting stronger or progressing at all, because
it's not supposed to be there.
Okay, that's fair. Like maybe that's just my misconception. I thought this was one of those
it's never. No, the game is very much more about the monster killing than it is about the loot building, right?
Okay.
The whole reason you're building better equipment is just so you can progress onto a more interesting monster to fight.
Okay.
And you're supposed to. I mean, the game. I think one of the things the games has lost since this new entry is the satisfaction that you get from killing a difficult monster, because the game is very much more scaled. It's a less jagged experience between the different monsters, so you lose that sense of satisfaction. Like, oh, I've been stuck on the third or fourth monster in the game. Well, the first like 7 or 8 monsters are super easy, so you don't really feel that you're like you said, you're progressing in either way from the equipment or the monster. But I think some of that comes back into the game later on, and I think that's where you guys haven't given it a fair shot, which is what I'm trying to say.
Okay, let me to that point. According to Steam, I've put 20 hours into Monster Hunter World.
Okay.
I would define that as a pretty fair shot.
How many times have you died in that game?
Maybe once.
Have you failed any of the missions?
I think the one I died, you failed. Or yeah, and then I failed one where I was delivering eggs and the thing popped all my eggs or something like that.
By the way, those egg missions, those were mandatory in the older games, which was super annoying.
There's a couple of mandatory ones isn't there in the single player, or were those optional?
No, all the delivery ones have become optional.
Are optional? Games. Okay.
Yeah. I was gonna say, like, when you fight, I don't know if I'm gonna spoil this for you guys, but it's not that big of a spoiler. It's
spoiler warning. Here we go.
Yeah, the Pink Raytheon is the first true difficult monster in the game, and when you fight it, there's almost no way that you could beat it on the first time. And I think the game is intentionally doing that to you.
Okay.
So I think that's the first real moment in the game. No, I'm serious. That's the first real moment in the game where you actually beat it and you feel like you've learned something new. Like, it's not just grinding for better gear in that case. And I feel like that's where the game pushes you to go online. You go online, you learn something either by playing with someone else trying to beat it, or trying to beat it yourself. And you might get better equipment to help you out. That might not make a huge difference. You still might have to figure out.
I think if the game was called Monster Hunter 26 tagline, the same Monster Hunter you've always loved, if you're a fan, with some added, amateur attempt at internet gameplay, then I never would have picked up the game. And then I would have spent 1 hour. Like, the thing is, I probably played like 1 actual hour with James, and in that hour decided this game is not for me, and like attempted to return the game. But the 3 hours I spent trying to get in a damn session with him and figure out how to play the game made me go above the limit for refunding a game on Steam.
Right. So let me ask you a few questions, Leo. How many weapon types have you tried in that game?
I mean, I only care about one weapon type.
And that would be the longsword?
Specifically the katana.
Right. I mean, I know you really love katanas, and that's your thing, but the game has, like, I want to say 12? I don't even know how many. 12 weapon types. And each of them are drastically different than one another. I don't know if you noticed, there's two transformation weapons. There's a charge blade and there's a switch axe. and those are extremely more complex to learn. So, that might be
Right.
something, because you were complaining about your blades bouncing and the attacks being very simple. And
It's so weird. Like the thing. Story time for a second. The thing that made me really set down Monster Hunter World was the first time you fight whatever Zora Magdaros or whatever the hell it's called.
oh boy, yeah.
Oh, do you know where this is? The game like pivots from this like not open world, but well, yeah, kinda. I mean, the environment is very open, and it's all about tracking and hunting these monsters in this big open environment, and the game suddenly pivots to this like
Heavily
really
scripted.
yes, extremely scripted like boss fight that is like it's just like
Cutscene heavy.
it's cutscene heavy, and it's like Simon Says. It's like the the AI will be like, hey, like go here, shoot him with this. I'm like, all right, I'll do this. I'm like, am I doing what the game wants? Like there's no feedback here. And then it's like, hey, go here, do this. I'm like, okay, let me shoot the cannon a little bit. And then it's like, oh, he broke through the first gate or whatever. I'm like, is that scripted, or is that supposed to happen, or am I messing up? I have no idea. There's no feedback here. And then it's like,
Right.
well, now you have to like get on the monster. And I'm like, okay, here we go. And then it's like, now you have to destroy the lava cores. And for the longest time, I did not know what the lava cores were. And the AI is just like, destroy the lava cores. I'm like, I don't
Oh my
know.
God.
And it was weird because like on the mini map, it was like highlighting like, go here, do this, go here, do this for every other thing except destroy the lava cores. And I'm like, I don't know what this game wants me to do. And then like the yeah, and the music was like super intense and bombastic. It was like bum 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 bum, and it's like destroy the lava cores, bum 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 bum. And this went on for like 10 minutes. I'm like, I
Everyone
do not
knows what the lava
know
cores are,
what
man.
the lava cores are, and it's just bum 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 bum, and I could not figure out. And then eventually I realized you have to like smack the wall against the. There's like some glowing wall that you have to smack a bunch of times. That was really weird to pivot into that really heavily scripted Simon Says. Like that was so strange, and it was also so clearly designed to be played with multiple people, because at the part where the monster's like approaching, there's like multiple cannons and multiple artillery things, but like I can only fire one at a time because I'm one guy. Like it was so obviously meant to be played multiplayer, but you can't invite your friends in the first time you play it. Like that was that was a really tedious and frustrating boss fight. And then
Unless you back out after the cutscene, so
I will say for that is definitely the worst ever designed
yeah.
thing of Monster Hunter ever.
Okay. All right.
That's
Not
hands
just me
down.
then.
All players, even fans of the game, will agree that that
Okay.
is the worst sequence of a monster fight ever in the game.
Okay,
So,
good. What do you think about the UI in this game, John or Leo? Either of you?
So coming from the PSP, it's
Uh-huh.
significantly better than that.
Oh boy.
And I mean, I didn't even have a stick to control the camera. So can you imagine playing the game without camera control? Like that.
Oh
would
my
just
God.
You'd be swinging in the wrong direction all the time.
Yeah.
Like, as Leo
Yes.
said. Right. So
Yeah, I thought
mean,
the targeting in this game was a little weird too.
terrible.
it's
is what you
new
meant
for
to
the
say.
franchise as well. There's no way you could lock on before this game. So, or at least that's. I mean, I played 3 as the other franchise.
It's
so I
not
don't
like
know.
locking on really helped at all.
No, and it's not supposed to. I think it's just supposed to like give you.
It's supposed to make your camera very awkward and difficult.
Well, like every time I locked on, it would like lock on to like some other monster in the distance. I'm like, no. I want to lock on to the boss I'm fighting. So it would like I would hit lock on again, and then would like lock on, or like spin the camera all the way around to lock on to something behind me. I'm like, no, like not that. Like
The lock on is, I think, primarily used for the scout flies. So if you notice on the bottom left, there's like little like
Oh God, the scout flies. Let's talk about the scout flies, please.
well, let me finish my thought on the UI before we move on to scout
Oh, no.
flies.
Okay, yeah,
sure.
yeah.
I thought the UI was like really busy. There was like just tons of information everywhere, and it was like never the information that I wanted to see. Like I don't know, a health bar. But
it is busy.
But also like just information is just all over the place in this game. Like it's like you have your provisioner, and then you have a botanist, and then you have the fucking bounty guy. And then there's like 3 different types of bounties. There's your bounties, you got your limited bounties and your optional bounties, which are different from your quests and your optional quests. And then you got the you got investigations, and then you've got the chef, and then you got 2 different weaponsmiths. You got
ecologist.
You got the ecologist, and you got a weaponsmith, but that's it. You can't buy weapons there. You have to buy new weapons from a different guy. Like just like the organization of information is
you're stressing me out just talking about it.
I know the organization of the information in this game is like, like you really have to spend time to learn the different, like, I feel like it's kind of obtuse just to be obtuse. Like there seems to be like very easy and obvious ways to make this more intuitive, but like I don't know again if this is like vestiges of like, oh well, this is the way it worked in the other games and let's just do it how we've always done it, but like do you get that sense at all that like and even the UI, like the inventory management, just like everything is just kind of cluttered, and I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
just me, or is that okay? Good, not just me.
No, it's definitely that way. But I would say there's a lot of games that suffer from that as well, right? Like I
yeah.
MMOs very traditionally.
Yes. This felt like it had a lot of MMO influence.
Mm-hmm. And I would say it does. You'll find that there's communication wheels, just like a lot of console, multiplayer games.
Except MMOs have this great feature where people are massively online on a multiplayer landscape. So they've really nailed down the multiplayer aspect pretty well.
You had a lobby of 16 people. That's massive.
Yeah.
Right?
You have a lobby, but don't mistake a lobby for a party because they're 2 different things.
You can't see anyone in it. You just see like a list of names.
Unless you're in a special area, unless you're in the new, like that's what I mean. Yeah. It's like this, except this, but in this case, and then but if you want this, it's over here. Like it's just like like there's a million ways we could have made this easier.
Yeah.
Right. So the UI is very busy for someone who's new, but if you're really into it,
but if you play 30 hours,
no, I mean if you enjoy the game and you take the time to learn it, then it just becomes like almost secondhand. It becomes more of a power tool than a obstruction.
All right, Leo, tell me about the scout flies.
Oh, I don't really want to talk about them at all, please.
Okay.
So that locking mechanism that you were target locking that you were talking about earlier, I would say the primarily purpose of that is just to switch your scout flies paths, because there could be several monsters in an area at the same time, and so you'll see like a little row of icons next to the minimap in the bottom left, and that pressing that target lock button will cycle between all those icons.
That part, like having the monsters that you know about on the bottom left, was the only part of the scout flies that actually made sense. The part that just would boggle me was just like what the hell? I was just walking through this map and there's all these random things popping. It took us like an hour and a half before we realized, like, we were looking for mushrooms for the longest time.
Yeah.
And then like we didn't realize what the colors meant, or if the scout flies were telling us that there were items there, or like I don't know. It was just they don't explain any of it. So
yeah, it's like
and the scout flies pathing is really bad as well. So if you follow strictly that, it's going to take you forever to get where you need to go.
Okay.
Yeah.
It seemed like the scout flies were sort of a attempted solution to the problem of like, okay, we have this huge like non-linear map, this huge open world map with a ton of different items in there. Like, how do we tell the player where anything is without having like a million different icons? But I'm not convinced the scout flies were the effective answer to that problem.
Right. And I think that single feature alone was probably one of the most controversial changes for a lot of the people who played the original franchise.
Because I heard that's a new addition to Monster Hunter World.
It's extremely new. I got really excited when I saw some of the demo footage for that, because that very much like what you're saying, Leo, all my issues in the past game was that the monsters would run away. and that there would be no way you could track the monster at all. Like there used to be an item called the paintball, and you would throw it in a janky animation type way. So you had to line your character up just right and hit the monster with the paintball, and then from that point on, you could tell where the monster would run away to. So when I saw the scout flies, I immediately got excited, and I'm like, okay, I don't have to paint the monster.
So now they
anymore.
give us the ability to track the monsters, but they make it damn near impossible to catch up to them, and then you have to whack them with a soft, wet noodle to death.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
That's better.
Until you get a strong, heavy, hard noodle, and then you whack them less.
I want that soundbite out of context.
You whack them less, and you feel better.
With a strong, heavy, hard noodle.
Right. And then, like, the problem is, as a new player, there's this really cool, complex. So the maps in this game are really beautifully done.
The game does look very nice. Yeah.
Yeah. As a newer player, you have like, and this wasn't in the other games. The other games was very much 2-dimensional, but in this game, there's like a multi-dimensional stage. You could be at the bottom right next to a waterfall in the same map, and then you could be by a lake, and then you could be on top of a treetop area.
Yeah, I don't know. Those scout flies just seemed weird to me. Like, I was like, oh, like, because I was like thinking about it. I was like, oh, maybe the game would be so much more interesting if you just took the scout flies out of the game, and then like, oh, then you could like track the monster's footprints and stuff, and then it would be like actually about hunting, like really hunting the monsters, right? Because it's called Monster Hunter, not Monster Battler or Monster Killer. I'm like, oh, that'd be cool. And then like, would that be fun? Like, I don't know. But then like, what is the point of having these footprints and like all of the spit and saliva and like all the like traces of the monster if the scout flies just lead you right to them anyway? Like this is what I meant when I said like the game felt unfocused. Like I don't like it has these elements like, oh, the monsters leave footprints everywhere so you can track them, but we have these flies that track them automatically for you. Like right. Oh, okay, but like maybe the game is supposed to be all about battling the monsters, but then like the pacing of these fights is really weird. You have these moments where the monster runs away, like, so like, okay, maybe the game is more about like getting the loot to get better weapons, like maybe this is more like Diablo or something, but then like it fetishizes all these numbers, but then the monsters don't have health bars, and then like, okay, maybe it's about like socializing with friends, like, okay, you have these like big multiplayer battles against monsters, that sounds cool, but you can't have like, that's what I mean, like it's right. All these like this except this, like it just feels I don't know, janky.
Half-assed.
Not half-assed, just janky.
It is trying to do a lot more at once than any of its previous games did. So I think as an end result, when you have a game that's trying to innovate in that area, everything else kind of suffers. So yeah, I mean,
it ends up doing a lot less than it should,
right,
across all the areas.
And it's not all bad. There's stuff about Monster Hunter World I really do like. I really liked the emergent AI that governs all the different monsters, because they're not really scripted. It seems like the AI has some sort of like emergent behavior that it's following, right? Because it seemed like in different weather you could find the monster in different places, and then like sometimes the monsters would be in the same area, sometimes they would fight like each other. Like that stuff was really cool. I'm like, oh my god, like because Leo and I were playing and two of the monsters just started fighting each other. I'm like, oh, that's awesome. Like maybe one of the monsters will, tire the other one out. But again, there was no feedback on how, because like now I don't even have the damage numbers, so I have no idea like, are they just fighting? Is this for show? Is this actually doing like real?
Did you turn off your damage numbers?
It still has damage numbers even if I'm not doing the damage.
Oh yeah, that's how you know that the other monster is doing something.
I did not even see that. Okay, because
we might not have been close enough.
Okay, because yeah, then I was like, is this just doing nothing, or is this actually doing actual damage? Like I have no idea.
No, but that's a good point. You're discussing that, because I remember encountering that in this game too and wondering the same thing. I'm like, does this really do anything to the other monster? Like, is this helping me in any way, or is this a waste of time? And then I saw the damage numbers after a few times of seeing that.
Okay.
and then I was like, okay, I think this is a good use of my time. But sometimes it's not. Sometimes you don't want too many cooks in the kitchen, right? Like sometimes there's 3 monsters in the area and they're all fucking around, and you're like, I want to kill this piece of shit.
Yeah, because that was the other. I was trying to kill one of the smaller monsters, and the big like T-Rex thing just came up behind me and killed me in one hit. I was like, oh damn it! Like,
yeah.
But I did like the whatever systems driven AI that was governing the monsters' pathing and behaviors. Like that was cool.
That's good. I'm glad you like that. That's a first for the series as well. That the fact that you can have 2 major monsters in the same area interacting like that. So yeah, I thought that was really cool. Did you notice any of the environmental hazards?
I did. Like there's a couple times where like I think later in the game I was fighting one of the monsters and it got like trapped in some of the vines or something like that. And I was in. And it was like the second time I fought the monster, and I was like, "Oh, whoa! Like this did not happen the first time. Like that's crazy."
Right. Yeah. No. And you probably noticed that like as accidentally, right? Like, oh, this monster tried to hit me, and it hit the tree instead. And
exactly. Yeah.
And so like, there's a lot of this accidental knowledge that you get just by playing the game, and like.
No, we like that part.
That stuff's cool.
Yeah. And there's like the game's filled with it, and I feel like that this appeals to like an era of gaming before the internet, where like there was no guides, there was no people telling you how to min and max everything and the best way to do something. This is like a trial and error. Like if I do this, what will happen? And if I use this weapon type, will I be better with it? Or if I craft this,
John Shahada, I cannot believe you don't love Dark Souls more.
I do.
That is 1,000% what Dark Souls is.
You assume I hate that game, but I own all of the games, and I tried playing all of them at the to the end as much as I could.
It's just a way more punishing version of Monster Hunter.
See, all these games that are skill based and knowledge based and experimental, they're just to me like the key driving factor to beating those games is primarily time. If you put enough time into those games, you will figure it out. And I think that's something that's more limiting in my current situation than it was back in the pre-internet days. So
okay.
All right, so I think we might need like final thoughts here on Monster Hunter World.
Yeah, we had a good little conversation.
Yeah.
I thought it was okay. I thought it was a little janky. There are some really annoying things about it. Like I would love to remove the restriction of the cutscenes being single player, whatever the hell. However that works is not the way it should work. And then just make the information less obtuse and and then maybe some health bars for the bosses. And all of those things don't seem that hard to do. And I think you do those things and you have an objectively better game, right?
Yeah, true. I mean, I don't know about the health bar thing. That's
I'm sure that's more controversial, but I just wanted some feedback on like how far, like, am I doing any damage? Like, how far in this fight am I?
I will tell you, in case you guys didn't know, that those damage numbers, the purpose of those is to let you know when you're critting, when you're doing elemental damage.
Yes, you crit when they're like yellow and then slightly larger.
Right.
Like, they'll go to 10.
I figured that out, but
or when you want to impact elemental damage. So if you poison the monster, you'll see that there's a damage number that appears. So you know how much your poison does over time. Or
you know how much it does, but you don't have any feedback as to like how much that matters.
You talk with your friends. How much damage are you doing? I'm doing 5.
Yeah, but here's the thing. Yeah. Like I said before, 5 out of a max of 50 is a lot of damage. 5 out of a max of 50,000 is nothing. Like that's what I mean. I want that health bar.
I guess. I mean, if you're so...
Guess what? You know what? You don't even need the health bar. You could just have feedback in other ways, There's other mechanics you can do.
And the game, this game delivers that to you. You get the monsters like trackling away very slowly.
They do start limping, and their behavior changes.
Yeah, after an hour.
And like so. It gets enraged a lot more, or it gets knocked over more frequently. Like those are all subtle cues.
Well, we need more less subtle cues.
No,
That's all.
Okay, again, going back to what I said earlier, the weird thing about this game that fetishizes all of the statistics and numbers and elemental affinity and poison and like here's your damage output, here's all this stuff. The like most key piece of information is missing, which is the boss health. Like all of these things mean nothing if I don't know like what percentage of health I'm chipping away at.
it doesn't mean nothing. The game's trying to tell you that the gear that you're trying to get is better than your current gear. But
Okay,
by how much? Look at the stats.
Exactly. Like, that's what I mean. There's a million different numbers that all go into, like, if it wants me to pay attention to these numbers, then give me the most important key piece of information, which is the boss's health. Like, if the statistics are not important, if the numbers like don't give me that giant Excel spreadsheet of upgrades and numbers and all that bullshit, if it's not important, just tell me like this is better than this at this, you know?
The other thing about the boss's health, right, is the monster size determines the max health of the boss. And
Okay.
the other thing is if you have other people playing with you, they increase the health of the monster, so it's more fair. So I don't know.
All the more reason to have that health bar then.
I guess. I mean, I think there is a mod you can download that will add it into the game.
Oh, I don't want a mod. I want the base game to have a health bar.
The mods make all games better.
Like, I mean, tell me why that's a bad idea. Like, what's the counter argument to this? Like,
I mean, you have a health bar in Dark Souls, right?
I know,
But-
and it adds a real sense of tension to those battles, and it gives you a sense of feedback, like you know when you did a huge amount of damage, you know?
Right, but there's still no indicator for the different phases that all the bosses have, right? You don't know if the boss is going to switch phases halfway through his.
That's fine.
Health
The
bar.
element
That's-
of surprise is good.
That's fair. Like, I don't
Yeah.
phase away.
I don't know if
Like-
that's necessary. You still have a loss of information that's not translated, even with the
But
health
you still
bar.
have the core information of I know that I'm more effective now at killing this
Right.
boss
So if you
by
see the
seeing
monster
health
lipping, you
token.
know it has 20% health or less. Like, do you really need a bar to be 20% full?
A bar
to tell
gives you instant feedback. If I go to the same bar after leveling up and getting better gear, and the chunk sizes on each of my hits is like obviously larger, then I know, oh hey, all that stuff I did, all that effort I did to upgrade my shit is worth it because now I'm doing more damage.
You should notice through the other things that the game tells you, like
Yeah,
how
but
long
John-
it takes you to complete the mission, right?
John, tell me why this is a bad idea, though. Like, what is the thing that we're trying to protect by eliminating the health bar?
It's just a unique sense of style. That's all you're protecting. Not everything needs a fancy intuitive UI. That's the thing, right? Like if you play a shooter game and it tells you if it shows you the bullets in your clip, isn't that way cooler than if you just had a little corner icon that said like 5 out of 10?
No, because
You know,
some
like-
games are like, okay, let's minimize the number of UI elements as possible. Like games like a lot of narrative games like Firewatch or games like Gone Home, whatever. There is absolutely
shooters.
no or shooters. There's no UI, none at all. Like, I get that they're trying. It's
Sure.
it's all about immersion. But Monster Hunter has a million fucking things in the UI. There's sidebar and scout flies and your compass and your other bullshit and your weather and your blah blah blah. Like, it's a million different things cluttering up the UI. Give me a goddamn health bar
Yeah.
on that UI. Like, why is
But the purpose-driven UI, right? Like if you look into that, right? The fact that you don't have a health bar means that the game is trying to tell you that you don't need a health bar. You don't need that
yeah,
additional
but I
UI
want it.
element. Yeah, you want it. That's different than needing it, right? And that's just that's a stylistic choice, right? It's trying to abstract.
Yeah, but it's a
sense-
bad
piece of information.
choice.
How is it a bad choice? You still get other pieces of information that is almost as good.
Yeah.
But
All right.
okay, to your point, all right, whatever. We can.
I mean,
I
agree
think
to
I think
disagree.
we've hashed this out enough. We can move on.
Sure.
All right, are we moving on to our top 5 monsters in this game? Is that any other closing thoughts on? Oh yeah. I gave my thought and then didn't let anyone else go. What's your closing thought on this, Leo?
Yeah, I mean, well, before I give my closing thoughts, I'll just say that we'll probably just breeze through the top 5 monsters. Maybe just let John do it.
That's what I was thinking. That's why I wanted to have a good conversation about this.
Yeah. Excuse me. Okay, so in closing, there are some really fun parts of Monster Hunter World that I really enjoyed in my playthrough with James. First of all, it was playing with a friend, and then it was exploring an open-ish world, running into danger, seeing monsters interact with each other, and just witnessing that together and exploring together was really fun. And if we could learn from that and like become these badass hunters and like do all this cool tracking and then like kill stuff and feel some victory from that, I think that they really have a good game there. I think they just have all this other stuff that gets in the way of a really good idea. So yeah,
fair enough.
Thoughts.
John, what you got on Monster Hunter World? Closing thoughts.
Closing thoughts. I think the game is a respectable entry into the series. I think, like I said before, it does a lot of new things and is progressive in a lot of different ways. I think also the game takes a step back in certain ways too. I'm really happy that it's out on all the platforms. Like been waiting for this for a very long time, and I'm glad it's very successful. And I'm hoping to see another entry on all the major platforms again.
All right, let's move on to our top 5 Monster Hunter World monsters. I'm going to give my number 5 first. My number 5 is Behemoth. That's my number 5 because I can tell the localization team just ran out of ideas. They're just like, I don't know, it's really big. Behemoth, whatever.
Are you talking about Barrett?
No, there's something called Behemoth. Shit, is it called Barrett? Wait, fuck, did I...
Behemoth. I'm like, what the fuck? Like, I've never.
Yeah, there's a thing called Behemoth, right? Let me look this up.
I think you mean Barrett. There's some cool fucking monsters in this.
Oh, game. Fuck you! It's called Behemoth, John. There's a thing called Behemoth. It's a large monster in Monster Hunter World. It was added as a special DLC in summer 2018 for a Final Fantasy 14 collaboration of. Oh, fuck! It's a Final Fantasy monster. That's fuck me. All right, that's my number 5. My number 5 is fuck me. Go ahead, John. Because Behemoth is the Final Fantasy. Well, they just took the Behemoth out of Final Fantasy and put it in Monster Hunter. All right. Anyway, what's your number 5, John?
I gotta say, I gotta look up the name of all the monsters because I don't know how to pronounce them.
Oh, you're not a real Monster Hunter fan then. Sorry, John. I'm gonna need your Monster Hunter card back.
My number 5.
Yep.
Is the squirrel with the electrical tail.
Oh.
Otherwise known as Tobi Kadachi.
Oh, okay. Why is that your number 5?
I think it's one of the entry level monsters, the early game monsters, and I thought it was just very interesting. It attacked very uniquely. It was very fun to fight, and I still play against it even though I have better gear now and I can take it out pretty efficiently.
My number 4 is Basil Juice, because if you say his name,
you mean Basil Geese?
Oh, yeah, Basil Geese.
Basil Juice.
Because Basil Juice, if you say his name 3 times, he'll show up and he'll, fuck shit up. But Basil Juice. That's a Beetlejuice joke. All right, what's your number 4, John?
Beetlejuice?
I got it.
Oh, that's also your number 4?
No, I gotta think about this a little bit. I did not come prepared for.
What the? You're the Monster Hunter guy, John. Why are you the one not prepared?
I even suggested it. Okay.
This is your topic, John.
Yeah, I thought I did it as a joke topic. I didn't think because I knew you guys didn't kill 5 monsters. My number 4, Diablos. Not much to say. It's just a really scary looking, interesting monster. I think the first time I saw it, I'm like, holy shit, I don't think I can kill that. And then you kill it, and then you get that sense of satisfaction that I was talking about earlier. So
my number 3 is Gajalaka. Google Gajalaka. It looks really dumb. That's why it's my number 3.
What's a Gachalaga, bro? I don't know what that is.
It looks really dumb. Google it.
Is that the little? That's the little people with the.
Yeah, they look dumb.
But they're not monsters, bro.
Yo! Oh, according to the Monster Hunter World Wiki, they are.
You can kill it. It doesn't make it a monster.
Oh, well, tell that to the wiki. It's classified as a monster.
Okay. All right. What are we on? 3?
Yeah.
Okay.
This is fucking never gonna see the light of day. All right, go ahead.
Okay. The Engineer.
Okay. Why?
My number 3. It's a T-Rex, man. What else? It's a big purple dinosaur. It's like Barney personified. You're like, the fuck I'm gonna do against this thing? And then it's like one of the first things that can kill you in one shot too. So
yeah, it definitely happened to me. It was some real bullshit. My number 2 is Pookie Pookie. Strictly because I like saying Pookie Pookie. Yeah, what's your number 2?
My number 2?
Yeah, your number 2.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna go with the Azure Rathalos.
Oh.
So the Rathalos is pretty cool as that's one of the persistent monsters throughout the whole franchise. So it's a pretty iconic monster in the game. It's pretty badass looking. It's this wyvern dragon. By the way, I learned the difference between a wyvern and a dragon because of this game. They would describe them as a wyvern, and young John Shahada had no idea what a wyvern was. So I think it was pretty cool. A pretty cool looking monster.
Oh, we lost John for a second. He actually spontaneously combusted because he nerded out too hard about wyverns and dragons.
I think I'm back.
The difference between wyverns and dragons.
Oh, hey, he's back.
Hi, man. Hi.
Yeah. So I was just saying that the game was an introduction between the difference between wyvern and dragon, and I think it's really cool looking. That's why it's my number 2. And then the Azure part, it's blue. So
nice.
Blue is a cool color.
All right. Very good. My number 1 monster in all of Monster Hunter World. You guys ready for this?
Yeah.
Is moss swine. It's definitely not a goddamn monster. It's just a pig with some moss on it. They called it moss swine. Google that shit. It's just a pig with a little bit of moss on it. But these guys got bored and just put some moss on a pig and wanted to hunt monsters. Yeah. Very, very stupid monster. That is a real thing in this game. Yeah. There you go. Moss swine.
It says they're small, moss-covered pigs. Okay. That's what they are.
This is it, John. Number 1.
My number 1 is Nergigante.
Okay. You gotta be careful saying that around the hood, man.
Oh, yeah. Jeez.
I'm not saying Nergigante, bro.
Dude, just chill out with the N-word, man.
Tell me about your N-word favorite, John.
So the Nergigante, it's an Elder Dragon. I will admit it was the only Elder Dragon I got to kill in the game so far. There's apparently 3 other ones, but it is one of the most challenging, and I think it's even a step further on the difficulty scale. So I wish I could comment on the other Elder Dragons, but Nergigante, great.
That was fucking amazing. All right, let's move on. Endorsements. Who wants to endorse? I can go first.
Do it.
All right, I am going to endorse a fantastic video game that I just finished. I just finished a video game called Yakuza 0. It was extremely good. And I don't think a lot of people in specifically North America may have not been exposed to this game yet. This might be flying a little bit under the radar. This game gets very little marketing by Sega in North America because it is Japanese. A game. It is extremely Japanese, and I think the fear is like, Western audiences don't care about this extremely, extremely Japanese game. I mean, it's about the Japanese mafia. It's about the Yakuza, and I mean, there was even a seemingly intentional decision with Yakuza 0 to not localize it. So all of the voice acting, all of the cutscenes, everything is all in Japanese, and you just get English subtitles, which I think maybe in the past would have rubbed me the wrong way. Like, I don't want to play this game in a totally foreign language or whatever. That makes such a huge difference when the game is like, I mean, the themes of the game are so intricately wrapped up in Japanese culture that, like, I can't even imagine playing this game in English. Like, the game is I think a lot of people have some misconceptions too about what Yakuza is. It like I've heard it compared to Grand Theft Auto a lot, which is kind of true. I mean, especially Yakuza 0 takes place in this, like, a big open world city. So if you're looking at sections of gameplay, it can sort of look like Grand Theft Auto, but that's not really what this game is trying to be. And then I've heard comparisons also to Shenmue, because, like, this game is very story driven, and it's all about these like little moment, like these, you get these like little slice of life like vignettes, which are really great. It's all about these like super hardcore Yakuza, like they're criminals, but the two main characters that you alternate between, Kiryu and Goro Majima, are like, they're these criminals, but they have like secretly they have these like, hearts of gold. They're these super nice people that always try to do the right thing in every situation. It's sort of, I mean, it's very, very cutscene heavy. It's very story driven. So the bulk of this game is watching cutscenes, listening to dialogue, whatever. But the game is so well written. It's just really great. It's a really great story driven game that has a little bit of Shenmue and a little bit of Grand Theft Auto DNA mixed in there, but it's really kind of its own thing. And if you can tell how much I love this game by the ramble I just gave, you should know that I like it very much, and it's very good, and it's worth your attention. Yakuza, and specifically Yakuza 0, which was just released on PC, is a fantastic entry point for new people. It assumes that you know absolutely nothing about the...
It's like a prequel, right?
It's a prequel, and it assumes that you know absolutely nothing about the characters or the story or anything thus far, and it's a great place to jump in. It is very good. Yakuza 0.
Okay. My thing this week is something I like to do every now and then to kind of calm the nerves, and when you have a particularly stressful week and you're looking for something to sort of have a little bit of a therapeutic hobby, I suggest you take up pipe smoking.
What? Wait, excuse me? Really?
It's tobacco.
Yeah?
Tobacco pipes. Now,
what?
I know what you're thinking. Cigarettes are bad for you, and why would I smoke a pipe, right? Yes. However, with pipe tobacco, you don't inhale. The whole process of pipe smoking is to just kind of swoosh the smoke around in your mouth and spit it right back out, so you're not actually inhaling it into your lungs. And it is usually 100% pure tobacco, so it doesn't have all of those crazy ingredients that are found in cigarettes. And it's something I do like maybe 4 times in the entire year. There's no like nicotine addiction that comes with it. So it's just kind of this whole therapeutic process of like filling the tobacco pipe up, and you have to tamp it down. You have to do like a first light, and then you take some puffs, and then it usually expands in the bowl, so you have to tamp it down again, and then you do a second light, and now it's really lit, and then you have to like take short like slow sips, because otherwise the pipe will overheat, and then but you don't want to go too slow because then it'll like die out. So it's like this whole process where you just kind of like almost like meditate, and you have these little gadgets and you're putting it all together, and then you just kind of sit back and kind of get lost in the rhythm of things.
What the fuck got you interested in pipe smoking?
Cigar smoking. Yeah, I did a lot of cigar smoking and pipe smoking in college, man.
I was not aware.
Yeah, it's something I don't do often, so I mean, it's not like I'm just always walking around with a cigar or a pipe. Uh-huh. But yeah, just often the last, what brought it up this week was I was in Charleston for the weekend, and usually when I'm on vacation, that's when I'll either go, get a nice cigar from the local tobacco shop, or bring my pipe. And when you're just sitting down, like, on the beach, or, in a new spot, and just like people watching, and you just light up your cigar or your tobacco pipe and kind of like sit back and relax. It's good stuff.
All right, cool.
So yeah, I recommend that hobby, but just be careful out there.
John, what you got?
My turn. I guess.
Don't recommend Monster Hunter.
He can recommend whatever he wants.
If you haven't played Monster Hunter, play Monster Hunter, but that's not my endorsement. I would say probably season 3 of Attack on Titan, which is a very popular anime show. Have you been watching it, Leo?
I have not.
No.
I'm excited about it.
Yeah. So, I know that series kind of had a weird popularization. Took a while for it to really kind of get noticed here, and I think there was this huge gap between the first season and the others, which is unusual for a really popular show like that. So season 2 was interesting, but it wasn't particularly, the pacing of it was really weird. And then season 3 we're in the midst of it right now, and I think they're answering some important questions that were brought up from the original season, 3, 4, 5 years ago. So it's really exciting. I'm really excited to watch.
What is the premise of Attack on Titan?
So Attack on Titan.
Who's it by? I feel like you would know who.
I don't know the name of the guy who writes it. But the basic story is there is a version of the world where, there's these humans that are in this city that's surrounded by 3 large walls, and outside the walls are these titans, which are these giant human-like beings that eat normal people, and they can't get into the city due to these walls, but every once in a while they'll attack the city, and a group of people who are part of defending that city have these really cool 3D maneuvering gears that can effectively eliminate those titans. But it's not 100% effective. There's a lot of risk involved, and a lot of people who use that gear to eliminate those titans end up getting eaten themselves. So you have this really weird dynamic of like this grittiness of watching people getting eaten, and this really cool 3D maneuvering gear where people are ziplining across the city, and there's like these really cool high fantasy themes, a lot of German themes. There's a lot of German names in the show, but the basic story is like, why do these titans exist, and who are these 3 characters who have relation to like the overarching universe. So
it's very good world building, because it's a very unique kind of fantasy world, and also very, very creepy art.
Very creepy. The eyes are particularly creepy.
Yeah. So it's really well known for the creepiness in the art, and it kind of gives you like somewhat triggers your morbid curiosity as a human, I think. And but it's really, really well written too.
I will say, if you're it's a very sad show, so if you're affected by that, I wouldn't really recommend watching it.
That's
pretty graphic.
That is what got me off of the show, because I watched most of season 1, and it just got so depressing.
Yeah, it's pretty sad.
It's very dark. It's very dark.
It is written. It is written by, to answer the question of who wrote this earlier, it is written, to anyone who cares, it is written by Hajime Isayama. Isayama.
Yep. Mm-hmm. He gets a lot of flack for his art style, like Leo was saying, because it's very creepy, but it's also very simple. And I think a lot of people who are really into manga and anime, they criticize him for that. But honestly, think it's not that detracting at all. I think it's really well done.
Excellent. All right. So next week, I would like to propose that we talk about Octopath Traveler. Does anyone have any objection to that? So next week our show will be Octopath Traveler. Anything else from either of you, or should we call that a show?
I think that's it.
Sounds good to me.
All right. For the Good Games podcast, I have been James.
I'm Leo.
I'm John.
And we will see you next time.
See ya.
Thank you.
Bye.
Until you get a strong, heavy, hard noodle, and then you whack them less. You whack them less, and you feel better.